another edition of Burgh Watching. In this installment, we're talking with Dina Blumenfeld, the founder of Shining Light Prenatal Education Center, located here in Lawrenceville. Shining Light prepares its students physically, emotionally, and intellectually for birth. They offer prenatal yoga, classes in birth, breastfeeding, infant care, and a wealth of other workshops for new parents, as well as how to talk to their healthcare providers and how to communicate their needs and desires. Shining Light is the only independent, comprehensive center for childbearing in the Pittsburgh area. Welcome to Burgh Watching, Dina.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, as you can see, this episode is pretty relevant to me.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. So, I want you to explain to me the goals and the mission of Shining Light.
Sure. Shining Light Prenatal Education is Pittsburgh's only independent comprehensive center for the childbearing year. So we take women and their families from fertility and early pregnancy all the way through their pregnancies and into early parenthood. So we have classes to cover the yoga. So we have fertility yoga, prenatal yoga, Mommy and Me, as well as a number of other workshops. And we do classes like confident birthing, which is our Lamaze class, breastfeeding essentials, infant care, and many others.
Great. And who do you think benefits the most from these classes?
Well, quite honestly, every woman benefits the most. We like to see women in their first pregnancies, second pregnancies, third pregnancies, and so on. And it's very helpful for their partners to come too. The women themselves get quite a lot out of the prenatal yoga classes when they're combined with things like the confident birthing and the breastfeeding and the infant care. So that the combination of classes, people get the most benefits from. And the partners tend to feel a lot more secure and comfortable with their role as partner during labor as well as parenting. As for many people, this is a brand new experience, and it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes.
So why do you think that these types of classes are necessary for expecting parents?
Sure. Well, there are a lot of myths out there and a lot of misinformation. One of the most common things I hear is concerns about pain. Because we hear things from friends who said, oh, it was the worst pain of my life, it was awful, and we read stories online, and we say, well, everybody gets an epidural, therefore it must be that painful. And I had a couple in my most recent childbirth class where the father actually asked, well, how painful is it going to be? And his wife looks at him and goes, it's the worst pain of your life. And I said, well, let's back up for a minute. Has anybody had any surgeries or any major injuries? And she says, yeah, I had a knee injury and I had surgery and I had about 4 to 6 weeks of pain medication afterwards, and that was awful. And I said, well, did you get a break from your pain? And she said, well, no, not till I was healed I didn't get a break. I said, but labor's different. Labor's different. You have one contraction, you have a few minutes in between, and then you have another contraction. And in that in-between time, there isn't any pain. You get a break, you get to rest, you can eat, and that's the most important part. So finding that reality check for them made a big difference in their own confidence level, and that, oh, well, maybe we can do this because it's not pain from the beginning all the way to the end. And it's pain with a purpose because we're having a baby. So we have myths like that, and we have, issues with C-sections. We have a 34% C-section rate in this country, which is something that we need to work on. We have the myth that you have to birth on your back or in a semi-seated position, and those two positions are not helpful in most cases. So we want to get women upright and more mobile. So there's a lot we tend to clear up in our classes.
So give me some examples of how some of your clients have directly benefited from your classes.
Sure. I had a student whose baby was breech, so their baby's bottom was down as opposed to having their head down, which is where we want them. And most care providers will not do a breech delivery. It needs a C-section, which is kind of a shame. So she was scheduled for what's called an external cephalic version, where they manually rotate the baby. And it's an uncomfortable procedure. And she had been coming to my prenatal yoga classes for a long time, so pretty early on in her pregnancy. And every week in prenatal yoga, we do something called the Keep Up exercise, which is a mental exercise with a physical component. And they are very physically challenging, but it's great mental prep for birth because it puts you in that frame of mind of, I can do this. It gets you past the I can't, I don't want to, I'm so over this. Changed my mind, give me the drugs even though I didn't want them at the beginning. Right. So it gets you past all of that stuff. So when she went in for her version, she said to her doctor and her nurse, she said, you know what, can you guys give me just 5 minutes alone before we do this? And she said to me, she said, I put myself in that frame of mind that I had to have for my keep-up exercise. And she said, when they came back in, I had told them not to talk, so they came back in, the doctor just put hands on my belly, and he went, boop, and he turned the baby just like that. And he said to me, you know, I've never had a version go like that. I've had versions take 20, 30, 40 minutes to get that baby to turn, and yours just flipped right over. And she says to me, I think it's because of the keep-up exercise, because of what I did during class and how I could put myself in that frame of mind. Right. She then said, I know that I can give birth to this baby. I know that I can do this. And she did. She went on to have a great natural birth, and, you know, I'm really proud of her.
That's fantastic. So, you know, before we started our interview earlier today, we talked about some of the common trends that are happening in birthing right now. What do you think about some of those current trends, and what do you think really works?
Sure. What really works is having information and having reasonable expectations. We find that many women have the expectation that, oh, my doctor's going to be with me the whole time. I'm going to come into the hospital. It'll be the doctor I know. It'll be the doctor I like. And he'll stay with me the entire time I'm in labor. When, in fact, that's not true. You may not see your doctor at all till you're pushing, and even then it might be a resident. So it's a matter of setting reasonable expectations, letting women know that they can ask questions and what questions to ask, and that they have the right to informed consent as well as informed refusal, and that they should have that open communication with their care providers. So when we give them these set of tools that allows them to have a good experience regardless of any medical complications that might arise during birth.
Dina, one of the questions that I always ask all of my guests is, why Pittsburgh? So why Pittsburgh for you personally, and why Pittsburgh for Shining Light?
Well, for me, I came out here for college. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and I met my husband there. And through the magic powers of inertia, we got jobs, bought a house, and stayed. But I love it here. I mean, the cost of living is low, and we can get anywhere we need to go in about 20 minutes. And we live within the city limits, so we have a lot of stuff within walking distance from our house, too. For Shining Light specifically, there's nothing like this in the city. You can get other childbirth classes and other prenatal yoga classes, but there's no one comprehensive place. So if we look at other places like Manhattan, there's the Center for Prenatal Yoga, and there's the Center for the Childbearing Year in Boston. And both of those places have a very similar business model to mine. They're both very successful. And I think it was time to bring this model to Pittsburgh, as it is the future of childbirth education, and taking women from the beginning of pregnancies all the way through infancy and supporting them the entire way.
What is the best way for our viewers to get a hold of you?
We have a website. It's www.shininglightprenatal.com. You can call. It's 412-915-6167. And of course, you can visit us. We're in the corner of 37th and Butler Street, and it's a lovely, busy intersection. And our environment here is fantastic. So we have, we play music during our yoga classes, and even though it's a very bright and open space, it's still private, so that people aren't feeling exposed to the busyness of our street. So it's a warm and comfortable environment, and we'd love to have any new mother here.
Dina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of Burgh Watching. To stay up to date on all things Burgh, you can follow along on the Burgh Living blog at www.burghliving.com. You can also find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/BurghLiving, and on Twitter under our username @BurghLiving. Thanks, and we'll see you the next time.